Like, hey, I just saw
Touch of Malice.
Touch of Malice.
I saw that 6 years ago. I want to talk about it now. No, loser.
Touch of Malice. It's from King's Fall. And 6 months later, we're finally going to talk about it because we are literally just out here killing time until Lightfall. Back in Destiny 1, little history lesson for you. This weapon really did not get used that much outside of King's Fall, especially after some nerfs it received. It was used in King's Fall in D1 because of all of the daughters and Oryx mechanics that make you completely immune, so why not shoot a weapon that deals crazy damage? It was so good that it was either the #1 or among the top 3 boss damage weapons for the daughters encounter. But in year 3 of Destiny 1, Bungie nerfed Touch indirectly by making it so it no longer synergized with Blessing of Light, which was where Ward of Dawn gave you an overshield every time you stepped into or out of it. People would use this overshield to counter the loss of health when firing the weapon, which pretty much killed the gun in D1 as a damage strategy, not that it was really being used anywhere anyway. But it is back, and we got healing effects, overshields galore, we got Well of Radiance, so that means we're a lock for Touch of Malice. It's back. Hold. The gun is basically the same as it was in D1, except for 2 things. Number 1 is the Catalyst, which we'll go over how to get at the end of the video. The Catalyst gives you rapid hit, which is a great perk. The other thing is the ability to shoot one of those Taken Captain Ball attacks after you hit enough crits, which will disorient enemies and blind them, which is a pretty awesome piece of utility if a little bit slow. My very first interaction and test with Touch of Malice was in a Grandmaster Nightfall. I was on an Arc Titan, and within, I would say, 2 minutes of starting the strike, I shot myself to death. Arc Titan, not exactly set up to use Touch of Malice in a way that is conducive to making the weapon shine. In fact, most builds are not. I ran the entire strike with it, and I did not have a good time. I had a much better time when I swapped to Quicksilver Storm. This is because with Touch of Malice, there was a lot of stop and go with the gun, but also that even when I was just firing this thing at full power, I didn't really feel like I was contributing more than just using a regular gun. I was too worried about accidentally killing myself with the damage, and not only that, for as easy as Grandmasters have gotten, things still hurt in a Grandmaster. Not only do you need to monitor your shooting, you also need to play even more cautiously because getting hit by anything might kill you. I really did not like the stop and go that I had to do to make Touch work, if we can even call it working. But what about the healing, you may ask? What about the 3 rapid hits for some healing? Well, I wasn't able to make this happen very consistently, at least in the GM that I first played in, which was Birthplace of the Vile. There are a lot of enemies with shields that make them tough to hit, and I generally needed to be pretty mobile. I don't think I was ever even in a position during the whole run to get 3 rapid kills without worrying if I was going to die or not. Other strikes might have a better time with the healing. I'm not exactly in a hurry to go find out which ones. So right off the rip, my recommendation for Touch of Malice is don't use it unless you have some sort of a build that is going to enable you to use it much more effectively than not having a build for it in high-level content like Grandmasters. This held true when I hopped again on my Arc Titan into some seasonal content, Season 19 content specifically, which does make you slightly underleveled. Heist Battlegrounds, certain ones anyway, have a fair amount of enemies that aren't just going to drop after 2 to 4 shots. Some enemies will survive quite a while. And the more you have to shoot one target, the more time you're just going to need to wait, just sitting there waiting for your health to regenerate. That, or you can swap weapons while you're at low health, which in Heist Battlegrounds, it can mean death. It's easy, but it's not patrol easy. To me, my experience basically says that you need a build focused on this weapon, or it's not worth using at all. It is not a weapon that I would try to slot into a build that you already have going, because it's just not gonna fit. Ability spam builds are ruling the Destiny world right now, and even any sort of weapon-based builds, Collective Obligation, my Cold Hard build, typically have some sort of subclass or ability spam element to them. They're not just purely gunplay. Touch of Malice is pretty much pure gunplay, as it has no element nor any subclass effects. What kind of build would I be looking for then when using Touch of Malice? Well, I want to counter the loss of health from shooting this gun as much as possible, which means I want to make room for Devour. Devour is probably the easiest way in the game to counter this effect as long as you are actually killing things. Every kill will send you back to full health. You don't even need to wait for your health to regenerate like you would if you procced the healing effect on Touch, because Touch's healing effect is regeneration, not an instant full heal, although there is a little bit of a heal. Also, Touch's heal effect is 3 rapid kills to Devour's 1. So I want to minimize downtime as much as possible, and Devour does that. I hopped on my Void Warlock. I threw every possible thing on that would ensure I would have Devour up for as long of a time as possible. And would you believe me if I said it was terrible? You shouldn't, because it wasn't that bad. Honestly, the biggest thing I learned with this experiment is that an overcharged scatter grenade is way worse than I thought. It's terrible. What happened there? When did that happen? Devour keeps you very healthy, basically all the time. Again, assuming you are constantly killing things. You're going to need to focus very heavily on red health bar enemies the whole time, only opting for low or mid-tier orange bar enemies when there isn't anything else around. Stuff like Scorn Raiders, as an example, are a low to mid-tier orange bar enemy. Champions, don't bother unless you are standing in a healing rift, and even then, there are better options out there for dealing with champions. This thing is not dealing Destiny 1 boss-killing levels of damage to anything, much less champions. I will say that Healing Rift, while not perfect, almost completely counters the health loss from shooting Touch of Malice. So if you wanted to opt for some sort of heavy rift type build where you're basically only shooting this thing while standing in a healing rift, you could totally do that. Note that the Stag, which you might have thought of because it gets you a lot of healing rifts, will not proc if you shoot yourself to try to proc the effect. But it will proc if you get yourself really weak and then you let enemies break your shields. Still not something I really recommend a whole lot though. Titans, a void overshield from your barricade is only going to give you about 5 shots worth until your overshield is depleted. Not sure how much I'm really trying to make an overshield spam build thing happen either. The whole charged with blight mechanic, cleverly named, I see what you did there, I thought was a pretty cool thing to have on the gun, but it doesn't really change my perspective as a whole. Precision hits build charge, you get to 10 charge, and then you can fire one of the Captain Blight balls at enemies to blind them. It activates relatively quickly. It's a fun effect, it's a really good effect, but it's not really the main appeal of the gun to me. It's a neat little in case of emergency thing to have. Overall, not really my favorite gun. To me, the payout isn't really worth the hassle, and if it's not worth it to the guy who plays the game for a living, I'm not sure how worth it will be to you. It's not like it doesn't work with some sort of Devour build if you really want to try, or a heavy Rift uptime build. It's just not really for me, or anyone really, because my final point in this video is if Touch of Malice was really that much of a game changer, you would have heard about it by now. Other creators would have been posting, you'd see the gun in videos, on streams, Reddit, Twitter. How about in-game? This thing came out months ago, and I could probably count on one hand the amount of times I've seen the gun in the wild, and the most recently I've seen the weapon be used was in PvP, of all places. It wasn't even in PvE. If this thing was good, I would have posted about it immediately after getting it on my 40-something run. So, yeah, I don't really think there's any sort of secret tech behind this gun or anything. It's certainly a good primary damage option if you are truly out of every other kind of ammo, but you basically need to be in a well of radiance to really take advantage of it. I would complete the catalyst if you really want, just to get it done, and then it's probably going into your vault forever. In terms of what I think it needs to be competitive, I'm not really sure outside of maybe taking less of your health away per shot to reduce the downtime. The downtime just ends up being too much. I wouldn't mind seeing the heal be a little bit better. Either something where you don't need to wait that long for your health to regenerate. I think that would be nice. Also to reduce downtime. So, how about that catalyst? Well, you need the gun first. That's going to help. When you start King's Fall, you're going to look for a plate. Follow along on screen to find it. It's kind of outside the normal area you're going to be in. Stepping on this plate will spawn 4 relics around the area, along with some enemies once those relics are picked up. The enemies are mainly Shriekers. On screen now are some of the locations of where the relics can spawn. They're not always going to spawn in these spots, but they can. I will let the video play a little bit to show you the ones that I recorded. When you pick up a relic, you're going to get a timer. You need to dunk the 4 relics by the portal to King's Fall, the little thing behind the big gateway to the Ascendant Plane, before time runs out. The 2 non-relic players should kill the Shriekers that spawn, because if you die with the relic, you need to go run back, get it again, and as you can imagine, not good. The second time you're going to do this is after the War Priest, but before Golgoroth in that maze area. You do need to unlock the secret chest in this area in order to activate the plate. Refer to this map for instructions on how to do that. Once the door is opened, the plate will be next to the chest that spawns. Stepping on the plate spawns the relics, which will be scattered throughout the maze. Just kind of fan out and find them. The maze isn't that big. You should be able to find them pretty easily. The dunk location is on the way to Golgoroth, where you actually need to fall into one of those pits that you think is a death pit, but it's actually not. You'll see a giant statue in it. It's pretty tough to miss when you're looking into it. Wait for the team, and then dunk. The final one is in the transition from Golg to Daughters. It is the same premise. The starter plate is before the final ascent up the wall with the relics kind of scattered throughout the entire area. These will all be pretty easy to spot. Just kind of scope around with a sniper. I'm not going to go over all of the locations because you'll be able to see them. Shriekers will spawn with relic pickup. I believe there are 3, and they hurt. So the remaining 2 players need to be very fast on killing these Shriekers, otherwise your teammates are going to die to them. The rest is simply running to the dunk zone, avoiding all of the traps and hazards, which is towards the beginning of the transition area. You're going to see some zigzag platforms spawn in. Climb these to eventually reach the dunk zone. Dunk together, and you will enter the basketball court of Oryx, as it's been called. Here you need to just keep dunking relics until the game decides you're done. Have everyone grab a relic, dunk 6 at the same time, and then just go nuts. Like, dunk as many as you can, as fast as you can. The game will give you the catalyst whenever it feels like. I'm sure it's a specific amount of relics, but, you know, just dunk them fast because there is a time limit, and you'll get it. It's fine. There you go. There's your catalyst. Now you can get it, and then pretty much just ignore this gun until it gets some buffs. if that ever happens. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.